Hello, Peter? Yeah, just walking past the development now, doing very, very nicely. I'm sure the Yanks will love it. Tell them we've got an ornamental, old English koi carp pond going in at the back. That'll be fine. All right. Yeah, also, listen, if the council are kicking up a fuss about the concrete, tell them it's green and then no one will notice the difference from the motorway. The 1st of March 1998 was when the Countryside Alliance had the march in London. 300,000 people in London, the enormous demonstration. In fact, well, this was the odd thing, it wasn't a demonstration. There was not one Socialist Worker Party banner. There was no police looking miserable, fed up and belligerent, and none of the stewards had bullhorns to tell people what to chant. So you think, well, that's a little bit odd for a start-off. When you look at the march and you look at who was on the march, you have got all these, you know, the Concerned, the old dears, you've got what's left of the Tory party wandering around. First demonstration I've ever been on. Apparently you're supposed to call the police filth. Get the secretary to do that one though, I think, you know. And what they were saying was, this is a march about the countryside. The issues here are about the Greenbelt, they're about development, it's about rural communities, rural poverty, it's about post offices, it's about conservation, all of these things. And you think, well, that sounds incredibly reasonable. Even the slogan was reasonable. Listen to us. And when you did listen to them, what they actually said was, we are the guardians of the land, we are the people who live and work there, we know how it works, you are trying to interfere, you'll destroy it, leave it to us, go away, die towny scum. I'm paraphrasing a bit, but that's roughly what they were saying.
What are you protesting against?
The right to have the country to ourselves.
The invasion of the Greenbelt, basically.
In a nutshell, it's field sports in general.
Freedom.
Freedom, country pursuit. Freedom of choice.
Now, Janet George was the press spokesperson for the Countryside Alliance, and she was facing the Foster Bill. There was a huge Labour majority backing the banning of hunting with hounds. The public, there was a massive majority of support from the public, and she was up against it. And this is what she said. This was her strategy: to wrap up hunting in a wider rural fabric because everyone loves the countryside and hates hunting.
The Countryside Alliance first priority was to stop the Foster Bill. And that's why the rally was organised, that's why the march was organised, the timing of them, everything. They were about hunting. What the Alliance did, very sensibly, was to invite other countryside organisations who had issues that we supported.
It's quite simple. Bury hunting in the middle of the other stuff and get away with it.
There's nothing concealed about this. We never made any bones about the issue that it was triggered by Michael Foster's bill, which was an anti-hunting, anti-dog owning virtually bill, which was very damaging to the countryside. That was what we all came together in defence of.
And you think, okay, but what about all the other issues? Aren't they important too? What did Janet George have to say about the other issues? And she's on record as saying, people would ring up and say, what do you think about such and such? And I'd make something up.
In fact, it was something that I was incredibly good at.
Right.
And it was the reason we got so much good press, was because I always had something to say on everything. You know, so
to
if you
improvise on a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, in PR terms, you can understand her strategy. Because if, like, someone tried to ban pornography and you wanted to organise opposition against it, then you'd get Salman Rushdie to come and speak about freedom of speech and about the artist's right to challenge the state, and you get artists to talk about challenging taboos, and you get Harold Pinter to handing a petition to Downing Street. You wouldn't have men in Max with banners saying, we want pictures to masturbate to. Just as she's not going to have huntsmen walking around saying, we like killing things.
There was so much talk beforehand about the huge opposition that we would meet, this rioting that would be in the streets with all the millions of antis who'd be out there hitting us with their banners and everything. I saw 6. And I think of those 6, 4 were nice little old ladies saying, I don't think what you're doing is right. And they're perfectly entitled to that. And a couple were nasty great yobs, would have been shouting about anything, throwing bricks.
On that march were the biggest landowners in the country. In the middle of all of that, they were there. They were marching through London. They owned vast tracts of London. They're walking through. Oh, we're on my bit now. It's very good. That bit's Charlie's, that bit's Ronnie's, and that bit's the Crown's. They'll let me through. Come on, everyone. Over here. And that was the biggest demonstration of landowners. And you have to say, well, let's remember this isn't a pro-hunting march. It's a countryside march. It's about all those wider issues. That means they're marching against rural poverty. That means some of the biggest farm landowners in the country must have woken up and thought, I know, I ought to give my casual labourers more money. And to make sure I go on a march. To make sure that I do give them more money. That's what I should do. And wandering around, what do we want? Higher wage bills. When do we want it? Index-linked, back paid with a nice little pension and there's an insurance thing.
Oh, what a pity. Oh, what a shame. Someone is trying to ban country sports again. Why must they interfere with the running of the land?
This was the single that the Countryside Alliance tried to get into the charts. The plan was that they would launch this single on one day and everybody in the Countryside Alliance would buy it and it would go to #1. Didn't pan out like that.
Because we are the guardians, the keepers of the land, and we know what would happen if country sports were banned.
Now, we've actually met this chap who sings it, George Boyer. And for me, George Boyer actually represents quite a lot of the Countryside Alliance. Because when you see him, he's this, he really is this sort of hands-on sort of fella. He's John Betjeman would have had him in a poem somewhere. He's a real country boy.
We know the glory of the countryside, the glory.
What the press release from the Countryside Alliance doesn't say is that he is Lord Denham's son. Now, I could be wrong here, but it does seem to me that they aren't keen to play up the class interests. And that really does sum up the Countryside Alliance.
The future lies with country sports, it does. The future lies with country sports.
The story of the countryside essentially is one of class. This is what it's all about. It's about who owns the land, what do they do with the land, what do they do with people who want access to the land, and how do they exclude us from it. And the great and the good claiming to be the guardians of the land. And what we're going to show you tonight is that that is a lie.
The responsibility for managing the countryside should be in the hands of the people who are on the ground, but what they need to be protected from is the huge temptation of large, vast sums of money, unimaginable sums of money, being offered to them to undermine that integrity by companies who are not responsible for the countryside ultimately, but they're responsible for making money out of it, so they will offer them money to sell the land. That's all wrong.
We've been travelling around quite a few places and went to a really nice place in South Wales. There's a really lovely bit of countryside down there. There are two communities that come out like this, almost horseshoe. And in the middle there's these green fields. They've got glowworms, there's canals, they're very beautiful.
What species have you seen out here? What have you got here?
Heron. We've got heron, woodpeckers, wrens, glowworms, about 145 species of flowering plants, various grasses that only grow in Netherlands, buzzards,
Terrapins, foxes, owls.
You name it and we've got it.
And there is a company called Pontypool Park Estates, and they're the biggest landowner in the development which is going to build 1,200 new homes in that greenfield space. They're essentially going to close the gap.
Well, I would hate to see all this disappear because there'll just be no green belt here at all.
No.
It's a sorry thing.
I mean, I can remember this when this was Allfields. My husband is older than me, and he came down here as a little boy, didn't you?
It's over 60 years I've been using it, like,
Yes.
you know.
There'll be nothing worth living here for. People are attracted to the area because of the green spaces around it. But this is the last green space, and this is why we're fighting to keep it.
Pontypool Park Estates is a company owned by the Hanbury-Tennyson family. And we thought, possibly, could that be the Robin Hanbury-Tennyson, as in Robin Hanbury-Tennyson, initial president and founder of the Countryside Alliance?
It appears that the Pontypool Park Estates have done a deal with Barratt Homes. Do you have an interest in that development?
Absolutely not. It's the first I've heard of any of it.
Does your family have any interest in Pontypool
Probably, but
Park
I don't know.
Estates? So you haven't...
Oh yes, Pontypool Park Estates, my brother's.
That's your
Estate,
brother's
yeah.
estate?
Mm.
I said, oh, really? Are you against that kind of development? He said, yes. I said, have you spoken to him? He said, no. I said, right, so you can organise a march for 300,000 people, but you can't phone your brother, hmm? So what we've decided to do is we're going to help him. We're going to organise a demonstration against Pontypool Park Estates. We're going to have a big march, and we're going to walk up to Robin Hanbury-Tennyson's brother's home, and we're asking Robin if he'll lead the march. So he can stand there with a big banner, "Stop my brother!" If you could say one sentence to the people who are putting through this plan, down that piece of equipment there, what would that sentence be?
Don't do it!
I would say, let's have a decent millennium gift and leave it for our children and leave it alone.
Edward Duke is the ex-president of the Countryside Alliance. 1996, he built a £2 million factory on a greenfield site. And he said, in defence, the site was greenfield in the business sense of the word, not in the Countryside Alliance sense. So presumably Mr. Duke is a tosser in the actual sense of the word and not in the practical one.
Oh, what a pity. Oh, what a shame. Someone is trying to ban country sports again. Why must they interfere with the running of the land? Oh, when the countryside is something they just don't understand. But
for me to go up and ask people if they'd interview and talk to us, and just sort of wander in and say, oh, hello, I'm Mark Thomas, I drive tanks at politicians. Will you have a chat? They're very likely to say, go away. Well, they're very likely to kill me. Or end up in the ferret trough or something, dead. And so what we did was we created this little character called Farmer Mark.
Hello, pleased to meet you.
Hi,
Pleased to meet you, Alison. Yes, I'm rather new to all of this malarkey, so you'll have to...
Chat away.
Yeah.
What are you actually doing?
Well, I'm actually getting a farm.
And Farmer Mark actually used to work in the city, made an awful lot of money, and has really reached that stage in his life when it's time to find a quality of life. You know, break away from just the rat race, maybe get out in the countryside, appreciate the kids, you know, stroke a horse, you know, shoot something, that kind of thing.
You got the white hat, you got the white coat.
Absolutely. I bought the wrong shoes.
I bought the wrong. Change your shoes.
I know. I had a dreadful night last night. It was the first thing that came on this morning.
And they loved it. And I'd be having chats with these people from the Countryside Alliance, and they'd just sort of tell all sorts of things. What do you have for children by way of kind of introductions and...
Well, funny you should say that, because we are running at the end of August a children's countryside day. They can, under very close supervision, handle a gun. They can have a go at fishing.
That sounds excellent.
Right.
Is there an age limit on this?
Up to about 16.
No, I mean, but low. 6.
She said, obviously, it depends how big they are. If they're a small 6, we won't let them do it. I mean, I was talking to her and said, do you steal blood, you know, after the hunt? I was very, very excited. Well, I remember on my first hunt, waking up the next morning rushing around to see if the blood of the fox was still on my face. She went, I know, me too. I said, do you still do that? She said, no. I said, that's a shame. If you go swimming, you get your certificate. Yeah, I'm sure nearly every adult who's done that, has got that somewhere in the box, I think it would be nice if you could have my first hunt.
Yeah, that's a very good idea.
And we sort of went around the place, and we actually staged a debate at the Newbury Fair. And as Farmer Mark, we staged this debate in this tent. And there's a whole load of people from the Countryside Alliance and all sorts of people there.
Persuaded environmental campaigner George Monbiot to debate with my fictitious alter ego Farmer Mark. Bingo. Farmer Mark, fresh from the newly acquired farm, is playing to a home crowd.
And we'll start on the point of access and the right to roam legislation that looms before us. George.
Thanks very much. Well, there's no question at all that there's a massive public appetite in this country for wider access to the countryside, indeed for a right to roam. A recent poll commissioned by the Ramblers Association showed that 88% of people in this country want a right to roam in the countryside. And why not?
I hope it not ungallant of me to note the lack of applause for your short speech. Thank you very much, George. I think my point on this is quite simple. There is no right to roam. You don't have a right. These are private people's property, and you cannot allow people onto it. It's as simple as that. Is that correct? Would people back me up on this one?
Can I just ask a question whether George Monbiot is actually actively encouraging people to roam in his own garden? And if he's not, what is his defence?
My defence is that my garden consists of 30 square metres. You're welcome to come and visit it if you like. Indeed, it's open to the public. If you want to come along, please do. But I'm afraid you wouldn't find very much of interest there.
I can't help but feel that those words are very easily said when you have a back garden that's the size of a postage stamp. But when your circumstances change, your view of that will alter as well.
So when you become privileged, you want to maintain your privileges?
The privilege is not the case. It is the right of ownership and the activities that go on within that.
I mean, let's be honest, George, this is the farmer's livelihood. And God knows, I'm sure there are people here who realise the difficulties that farmers have faced over the most recent years. Sorry, this...
I was just going to say, I'm a bit like George. I live in a modern house, and I have a postage stamp for a garden. I don't farm. I have nothing to do with farming whatsoever. And yet I respect these people who do actually make their living from farming. And I have no wish whatsoever to roam all over their property or hinder their way of life.
But it should be up to the landowners to demonstrate why we can't walk in a place, rather than for us to demonstrate why we should be allowed to walk in a place.
I think your head is in the sand, sir.
Peter, yeah, Mark, that's right. Yeah, get the accounts. Go through it once again and just check the subsidy system for me, will you? Just have a look on all that stuff. Yeah. Well, I'm just actually rolling into it now. It's bloody marvellous. Yeah, completely green. Absolutely green. Marvellous stuff. Yeah. Yeah, well, what we're going to do is I'll get the initial report and see where we're going to make the cuts and savings, mate. And I'll let you know as soon as we've got it. Looks like one of the smaller farms is a bit in trouble as well. Yeah, good news indeed. Good news indeed, mate. Yeah, if we could get a few more of them on the ropes, we'd be much happier. Yeah, time will tell. Time will tell. See you soon, old mate. Just rolling in. Just right. Oldie England, I've got to tell you, mate, absolutely bloody marvellous. It really is.
Very quick straw poll, okay? How many of you think that farmers are having a hard time of it? Just put your hands up if you think that farmers... Yeah, we've got some over there. Just put your hands up, anyone who thinks that farmers are having a hard time of it? Yeah, because we want to be fair about this. There's quite a few people... How many people don't think farmers are having a hard time of it? Oh, quite a few. How many people don't care about farmers? A few, a couple of joining in there.
Well, you know, made a packet in the city, come out to the country, you can't go wrong with land, frankly. I mean, once you buy it, it's yours, it's never going to lose value. The government give you subsidies to do it, you get more money than the lesbians at the GLC. Absolutely bloody marvellous, frankly. And the thing is, you know, we're only 1,000 acres now, but the point is, you know, small farms are having a very hard time of it, which should mean that they'll be, you know, selling low when they do sell up, and I'll be buying it quite profitably. I know it's harsh, but that is the law of the farmyard.
The year of 1996, farmers' profits rose in that year by 29%, just in 1 year. 1995, the net income for cereal farmers rose by 138%. That's not bad, is it?
Let's get going. Marvellous stuff. We're not putting in cereal crops this year. We're going to go for flax. It's a bigger subsidy. Don't know what you use flax for. I think it's jeans. I don't bloody know. You get the bigger subsidy. Sounds like money for a new road to me. Bit of a joke. The family all right? Everything going fine? I will give them a bit more money, but there's a crisis in farming. You understand? Hurry, push. Come on. The previous tenant was a very nice chap, and but he did make a few errors. I mean, half of this place is ICM, which is integrated crop management, and then some of it's organics. And I think this is a very well-meaning chap, but well-meaning doesn't put the butter on the bread. So for me, it was as a question of how do we see a farm? And essentially, I think many farmers in this country, fortunately, see it for what it is, which is a factory. It's a big factory, very pretty, very beautiful, with no roof and toilet facilities everywhere.
When you look at the big farmers, when you look at what they've done, it's absolutely incredible. We've lost 40% of fenland, 95% of meadowland, 300,000 kilometres of hedgerows have been ripped out. Since 1945, we've lost 20% of all scheduled ancient monuments, under the plough mainly. That's at a rate of 1 per day since 1945. And what they've got here is this desert.
You know, if we have destroyed that beautiful countryside so badly, as you say, widespread destruction, your words, why is it they flock into the countryside in such large numbers every weekend just to visit and to walk the footpaths and to look at the beauty of the countryside?
Here we are on the South Downs. As you can see, it's absolutely beautiful. But things aren't quite as they seem. I've got with me local wildlife expert, Dave Bangs. Dave, this field over here, this is Farmer Ray's field over here. What happened here?
Well, I mean, just to stick a few words in, we're actually on Kingston Hill, which is one of the most famous parts of the South Downs. It's the part that W.H. Hudson, in his book at the beginning of this century, Nature in Downland, actually wrote about. A very beautiful description of this wonderful, wild, open landscape. But if you actually look at it now, well, you've still got the sky and you've still got the long views, but I'm afraid you haven't got any of the things that W.H. Hudson was really interested in, the wildlife. If you look over on the horizon here, that great chocolate brown ploughed field 50 years ago would have been a glorious open down pasture, rich with wildflowers and butterflies and lots and lots of lovely wildlife.
You can get subsidies to actually keep downland, to make sure that the countryside is conserved. They're not as much as you can get for actually farming flax and all that kind of stuff, but you can get some money from it.
The irony of this scheme is that actually you get more money if, just as you say, if you're attempting to convert ploughland back into down pasture than you do if you're just managing it as it always has been, as down pasture.
What happened
so
to him?
His idea was that if he actually goes for, if he actually ploughs up the land, he'll then qualify for the higher rate of grant, and that is indeed what he did. I mean, frankly, this kind of land should never be put under the plough. You do not trash your best stuff, and this was the best.
You don't need to be a rocket scientist to say, right, in that case, then taxpayers' money going to Europe, coming back to the CAP, is now subsidising the destruction of the countryside.
Yes, it always has, yeah. That's the way the whole CAP works, basically. It's a subsidy system for the big productivist farmers. It's a subsidy system which actually benefits those farmers who are already doing very well.
So let me get this right. It's 90 quid to grow maize, it's 250 quid to grow cereals, it's 225 to do oilseed rape, that's per hectare,
and set aside is 325. Now set aside, I don't have to grow anything on it, do I? I just get the money for not growing, right? I do. Thank you. Okay, hold on. Stop! Stop! I don't need you. You're sacked. You're sacked. You're finished. If the farmer is going to have an area which someone will come along and tell him that he must keep it aside for a certain purpose, he must be paid for it. It's as simple as that.
There's been an orgy of subsidised destruction in this country for the last 50 years, and we've lost great swathes of the semi-natural habitats which were previously protected by farming. And I think you can really draw a distinction between farming, which is an activity which works with the land, and today's intensive agro-industry, which is an activity really which works against the land and often to appalling destructive effect.
During the war, this country was self-sufficient in food. Immediately following the war, farmers were asked to continue in that trend, and the modern machinery was brought onto farms, and they couldn't use it with the hedgerows that existed, so those hedgerows had to come out. And unfortunately, life being such as it is, the financial aspects of life in the country come to the fore, and farmers are obliged to make a go of it on a financial basis as well as maintaining the land for the future.
But surely farmers don't need to keep grubbing up ancient hedgerows in order to make that financial
Well, they may well do. It depends how they're farming and what they're farming.
I don't think you can speak for all farmers unless you've done a survey on it, to be honest, George.
Aren't we all forgetting that hedges were planted by farmers to enclose their stock? There weren't any hedges 400, 500 years ago. So what is the fuss about taking a few miles of them out now?
The only habitats left for wildlife in most parts of the countryside now are the hedgerows.
Nonsense! People are putting in woods, there are forestry grants, all these sort of things. Just wake up, go out there and have a look and ask some questions and stop being so damn patronising to farmers. Because I'll tell you what, farmers have only done what they were asked to do, what government subsidised them to do. If you want cheap food, you go and work for it on a farm.
You told me to go out there and see for myself. I do rather more often than most farmers would like me to. I keep being thrown off the land when I go in to see for myself.
Right.
But when I do...
What we've seen in recent years is hedgerows starting to be planted again. And the statistics quite clearly show that.
Was there a subsidy for planting?
There's a lot of hedgerows being planted without support from subsidies.
Is there subsidies?
There are some schemes that help, some not.
We're just at the other side of Farmer Ray's land, on the other side of the...
That's right. We were on the top of the hill there, just over the top.
And here you've got two bostels, which are the old sheep droves.
Yeah, the old sheep tracks. The shepherds would have taken their sheep up there from the village here at the beginning and the end of every day. They'd brought them down again.
And Farmer Ray couldn't get his heavy machinery up there to plough up the downland, so he took a bulldozer to one of the bostels, as you can see, the one on the left.
He did.
And scarred his way up there,
yeah.
Clipping two...
Scheduled ancient monuments at the top, yeah, two ancient Bronze Age burial mounds at the top of the hill there. He actually clipped them with his machinery in the process of bulldozing the track.
And that's a criminal offence?
It is indeed, yes.
And any prosecutions?
No, he wasn't taken to court for that.
The landowners are the custodians of the country. They are the people who actually look after it, love it, run it, and carefully manage it. Without those, you wouldn't have your countryside that you so clearly cherish.
Well, let's take a look at this.
Are you aware that every time you put your foot down, you're probably crushing something to death? The impact of your body on the countryside is enormous.
45% of sites of special scientific interest damaged in the last 10 years. By me with my boots? No. By landowners with their machinery, their muck spreaders, their ploughs and all the rest of it. This custodianship, which we keep hearing about, this stewardship of the countryside, has been 50 years of unmitigated destruction.
Let's look to the positive, to the future, rather than harping on about the past, where I've repeatedly said we've got things wrong, but we've learned by those mistakes. But tell me a part of society that hasn't got things wrong. If you can find me one, I'll lay it on they're lying a bit.
We pay £6.5 billion per year to the farmers in subsidies. We've paid for this destruction, and we've paid to be excluded from it.
Now this stuff is the stuff you want. Just bung it across the pathway, okay? You don't want ramblers coming willy-nilly around there. So just bung it up there nice and tight, keep it coiled, make sure they can't get through. Oh, and that means every morning you'll have to check the barbed wire for ramblers. You might have to pull one or two off.
Now, the Countryside Alliance doesn't support the right to roam. They support the Country Landowners Association and their proposal for voluntary access agreements.
Out! Get out! God, no! Get out!
Now, this is Bertie Bowes, Country Landowners Association spokesman, and he says, we don't want all and sundry roaming across our land.
Especially not criminals, drug pushers and vandals. What the landowners really want is exclusivity. And for me, the best example of this, National Farmers Union actually are now lobbying to ban subversive activities such as kite flying and picnics. Yeah, don't you try that.
One of the points you have to make about picnics or anybody with access to the country, particularly if you're on the open land, if people...
I assumed you lobbied for that.
That was not a key lobbying issue that I would put to the forefront. But I make the simple point. If you have a picnic on open land, not everybody has the reputation for taking all their rubbish back. Bottles, particularly glass bottles, not only can be a hazard to stock, are well known in dry summers for causing fires. Fires are a hazard.
The countryside, I mean, let's be honest about this. The countryside is always the poor cousin to the city. We have to be honest. The countryside is considered second after the urban areas. Now, what has worked very well in the urban areas at fighting crime has been the use of closed-circuit television. It's very easy to run it. The amount of crime you would prevent, merely by their presence, I would suggest, is enough to make them worthwhile as an investment.
I go to the countryside precisely to get away from that sort of thing, precisely to feel that that burden is lifted from me and that I can walk in some freedom without being watched all the time, without feeling constrained, without feeling confined, and I can do my own thing.
George is saying to us that he wants the freedom from being watched by coming out into the countryside to escape the cameras from the towns. There's been a reason that the cameras have been put in place in the towns because there is a problem. And he seems to be saying to us that he wants his parole, his day off from being viewed by authority, to be in our countryside on private landowners' land. Well, this is a nonsense of what he's trying to put forward of being responsible. It's demonstrating that those people who are coming into the countryside are coming out of a monitored environment. He's admitting that.
And you want that monitored environment to extend to the countryside now?
No, you're the one who is putting that upon us, not us.
I want to escape from the monitored environment.
Yes, but you're bringing everybody who lives in a monitored environment into the countryside.
This whole thing is entirely about exclusivity. It's about the landed gentry waking up each morning, and at the end of their bed, I wake up and at the end of my bed there's a huge house, a massive house, and on the walls a bloody great stag head that I shot. And my father shot it, and my grandfather shot it, and we've always shot it, and my generations have been killing for years and years and years, and this is mine, and bugger off. If my garden was 600 acres, was exempt from inheritance tax, and received subsidy for growing things on it, couple of kids with a loaf of bread and sandwich spread, probably let that pass.
Each individual moorland open piece of land is managed in a different way. Some of them have important wildlife areas on them. Mine do. Mine have some marshland on it where birds breed, and where indeed there's one small area where the snipe come. And I don't want people tramping over that. I take the boys out and shoot there once a year. We see if there's any snipe on it.
So we're on a bridle path now.
Well, yes, we are, and there's no problem with us being on it.
But all of this, which was publicly owned, now privately owned, if we step off it...
If we step off, I think what we'd find is that within 10 minutes, the gamekeeper from the farm in the valley down there would be driving up here in his little white van and very politely but firmly telling us to leave. I think there's no doubt about it.
So if I stepped on this bit here, That's the scrubland.
Then that is forbidden. You're not allowed to go there.
But I mean,
trespassers will be prosecuted.
Would I be sort of like done for worrying sheep or destroying crops on the scrubland?
You'd be done for worrying pheasants, my man. Yes.
Oh, well, let's worry some
That's
pheasants.
a crop. Yeah, come on, let's worry some pheasants.
Let's just go off and... Hey! We've got a bit of a problem because to release one so they can catch one of the buggers, gives them a good sense of, you know, feeling of accomplishment, and hopefully they'll come back, spend more money, blah blah. But some of the buggers have got out, which is a bit of, you know, a bit of a nightmare. So we've got to go and get them back. Yeah, I only hope don't put my shovel through one of them, frankly. But they're a pest, obviously, so it doesn't matter that much. But
Oh, what a pity. Oh, what a shame. Someone is trying to ban country sports again. Why must they interfere with the running of the land when the countryside is something they just don't understand? But
meanwhile, back at the Newbury debate, we've been going for about 45 minutes, and Farmer Mark had suggested that we don't need wholesale conservation for the countryside. Merely, we need to create centres of excellence where we can pull in all the bits and bobs of the countryside and funnel it into one enclosed area. Got a few appreciative nods for that as well. Where it really kicked off, as soon as I said the F word. The F word in this case being fox hunting.
The idea of getting pleasure from this pursuit for sport, for pleasure itself, in hunting down an animal and then tearing it to pieces with dogs, I find that a pretty revolting idea.
You have not got your facts right, George. This is why you need to come out hunting and see for yourself. A day's hunting starts at 11 o'clock in the morning and you can spend 3 hours looking for a fox.
Why do you need a massive pack of hounds, a whole load of horses and 50, 60 people in order to hunt one fox?
The people who follow, no, what I'm saying is the people
George, I think if
follow,
people didn't enjoy hunting, then they'd dress in black with armbands when they went hunting, wouldn't they?
People who follow hunts do so because they enjoy it. The farmers and the landowners are getting a pest control service in return, and it is a relationship that works extremely well.
The big argument they always say is that fox hunting, you see, is an extremely efficient pest control service. I think, okay. In the New Forest foxhounds, we got a letter from the Forestry Commission. I can confirm that 7 foxes were killed by the New Forest foxhounds last year. 7. Estimate indicates the cost to the Forestry Commission, our money, in attending hunts and dealing with queries amounted to around £7,800 for the same year. That means we paid them £1,100 to kill a fox. Doesn't sound that efficient to me. So we went down there. Come on!
To the pass if you can.
Chris, we'll have to leaflet, mate. We'll have to leaflet. Morning. Hello there. And we get out of the car and say, morning, morning, it's all right. The professionals are here. Morning. They can't just give you one of these. It's a pest control. We're doing a... Oh, doesn't he like leaflets? I'll give you one. Okay, it's just we're doing a 2-for-1 offer.
That's all right. Can you stay on the side of the road?
Certainly.
Now, please? All right. The main road there. You're standing in the road. Could you move away out the road, please?
All right, thanks a lot. It's just, I'm just trying to save you some time, that's all. Because we can do it very quickly for 50 quid. Okay? It's a lot of effort for a fox, isn't it? Do you know I can do it for 50 quid? These people were just like... Would you like a leaflet? Can I give you a leaflet so you can just...
No, I'm all right. I ain't got no pockets to stick them in.
Put it in your little pouch there. You'll be all right with
stick it
your
in
gun.
there.
Is that your gun in there?
Yeah.
What's that? Is that for shooting it?
Nah.
What do you use the gun for?
Just in case.
What, just in case? What?
What, do you have to put, it's in case sort of like one of the hounds or the horses or something gets ill and breaks a... Or you just sort of... There was this look of utter confusion. There's a chap trying to hand me something, I'm not sure he's on my side.
Why haven't you got a telephone number
I'm
on there?
ex-SAS.
You're
ex-SAS.
Are you really?
And we're trained in these things.
Why haven't you got a telephone number where anyone can contact you?
This is my boy, all right? Now, trust me, he's a young lad. We have to give
Who's your
everyone a
son?
break. No, not my son, my boy.
What do you mean by your boy?
The person who works for me. Chris, why haven't we got a telephone number on this?
Why is there no telephone number?
We haven't got a telephone number.
We offer a very discreet... But how do we find you?
Chris, leave my number.
I don't think you should hand them out without a number.
And I'll write it personally.
Chris, if you would.
I will.
Thank you very much.
I think it's very spurious, in fact, if you don't have a telephone number or an
I think you're
address.
absolutely right. If we've created the wrong impression, I'm dreadfully sorry about that.
No, it's all right.
Very suspicious. Where are you from? And Chris said, we're from London. Ah, townies. And it's like, don't give me that townie shit, because we passed you on your horse boxes on the motorway on the way down. You're not interested at all?
I'm not, no.
Not even special offer?
No.
2 for 1. Kill one, get one free.
Can't help.
Chuck in a couple of bunnies, the odd rat, maybe punch a badger or something, I don't know. We'll do, yeah? You interested? Can we?
Afraid not, no.
Okay, we'll just have to do that. We'll put them under the windscreen of the horse boxes. Pro-hunters will always put forward one argument, and when you beat that, they go, but what about this one? And the one they come up with is, well, you see, if we didn't hunt, and if there weren't foxes, you see, there's no incentive for the farmer to have conservation on his fields. So you see, without the hunt, there would be no conservation at all. Well, no, I don't follow that.
A farmer, if he was just farming purely for profit, would want his fields as big as possible so he can drive massive brake combine harvesters and hardly any turning around, do it all in economy of scale. Whereas what we all want to see is lots of hedgerows, lots of little coppice woodlands, lots of nice little wild bits where you get plenty of animals and wildflowers and insects and things living. Now, one of the best ways to do that is to encourage people to take up field sports.
Which sounds like we have to conserve the countryside so we can kill it. Which is a tad Prince Philip for my liking. Then they turned around and said, if you get rid of hunting, you'll destroy the fabric of traditional rural life. Feudalism? No. Fabric.
Whether you like or hate hunting, it is a matter of fact that it currently puts millions of pounds and thousands of man-hours into the rural economy. Now, if you cancel out hunting, you'd stop that investment, which the countryside has run on for the past 200 years, just like that.
In 50 years, 500,000 jobs on the land have been lost. And they've been lost by mechanisation. And I'm really sorry about this, but it's just I don't remember huntsmen and women and the upper classes out there fighting for jobs on that many occasions. I just don't remember that. I would have done. I don't remember during the miners' strike the Quorn Hunt turning up at the picket. Hello, go on, Arthur. Set to them, the Workers United. Righto, off we go. Marvellous. I mean, from our point of view, we can't understand it. We're trying to bring pest control into the 21st century. And there are these people who aren't very good at it. They're amateurs. You know. All right, there. And hasn't even got the right gear on, that one. Look at him. Got his betting jacket on. I think all of us know that hunting, country sports, are a right. And I would posit the idea that with the advent of cable television and the huge amount of possibilities that are now open to us, a country sports cable station, a channel for country sports, is what we should be looking for. A way of promoting our sports, a way of enjoying our sports, and a way of creating, if you like, stars. Would any of you, if you did have cable, would you subscribe to that? If people here had cable, would you subscribe to the hunting channel if it was one? Yeah, we've got interest in that.
But if you do have a hunting channel, which is what what he's advocating, if you do have a hunting channel, then surely not only are you pouring the enjoyment of tearing animals to pieces into our living rooms, but that the whole idea of it, the whole focus of it, is that it's a good and pleasurable thing to go out and kill animals for sport.
I mean, if you ask a question of urban people or rural people, school children, old age pensioners, is it right that a few people should have the fun of tearing little furry animals apart purely to gratify their own pleasure? You're not going to get a very big vote in favour. But if you say, do you feel that every aspect of the British countryside should be recognised for the contribution that it makes, and that no legislation should come in unless it proves that it's going to improve the wildlife of this country, you will get a very different vote.
And at this point, the hunters will say, no, you see, this actually underlies your real argument, you see. The reason you want to ban hunting is because you believe it to be cruel and barbaric. It serves no purpose. It is hunting for the sake of killing, with no eating involved in it whatsoever, hunting for pleasure, and it is a sport carried out by the upper classes, and what you are displaying is class hatred. Yep, I'll hold my hands up to that. I will hold my hands up. That's a big factor involved in it.
And if the Antis ban us, you can be quite sure that they won't bother to do the work that we have done before. But the trees will still need planting and the hedges must still be laid. The moors will still need burning and the bills must still be paid.
If these people didn't wear tweeds and run around in mud-spattered Land Rovers and talk with a plummy accent, we'd call them what they are, which is a cutthroat businessman. You're not the guardian of the land.
Now, you're going to say, Mark, that's just opinion. The following are facts. The Duke of Devonshire applied for permission for 2 open-cast mines on his land, one on a square mile of greenbelt. The Council for the Protection of Rural England have described open-cast mines as wreaking havoc on a scale unparalleled in this country. At the time of the application, the Duke of Devonshire was their vice president.
All of it gone, okay? Slash and burn the whole lot. I want everything gone. I want a big boom to get through here. I want the whole lot gone.
Or you could have the fact that the Countryside Alliance has accepted donations from Sunley Holdings, Pillar Properties and Sir Robert McAlpine, all property companies who have developed greenfield sites. Countryside Alliance have said that the donations do not affect their policies in any way.
The car park scheme's going ahead, bung the rubble in, yeah, car park, and then we're going to go ahead with it. Absolutely. No, you're cracking up, but I tell you what, listen, can you see if the planners will let us have one of those telephone masts? You know the big old things, we'll stick one somewhere near the cows or something. Yeah, put it on the top of the hill, that'll be fine.
Richard Tice, joint chairman of Sunley Holding, said the Countryside Alliance was for the protection of field sports, not fields.
Look, the place is bloody awash with pesticides anyway, so just bloody put it in there. Anyway, the rain will clear it up. Go on, just tip it in. At the point of a river, it washes it away. Go on. Listen, if you get any tumours or anything, probably warts. Send them to a gypsy or something. All right?
And the question you have to ask is if these people are the guardians of the land, with friends like this.
Well, things are looking great at the moment. I mean, the farm's actually expanding. Just stroke of luck, really. Mr. Graham over there committed suicide, leaving 4 kids and a wife and a couple of Labradors, and we were able to expand on the farm, which is another sort of 100 grand from Brussels in subsidies, which will actually pay for the land purchase. And so we're very happy. Obviously, a tragic event, but we're very, very happy that the farm's expanding. There's a number of farmers who are in trouble in this area, and who knows what the future will bring, you know. Every cloud, eh?